First of all, what I'm going to do is just talk about what the module does briefly. Nigel's going to go through and actually demonstrate the module and show it to you. I'm going to talk briefly about availability and what versions of our product it'll be available in. And then I'll talk briefly about the pricing of the product. Okay, so the purpose of the module is to allow people to either report a suspicion or an actual COVID-19 illness case. People will be able to either self-report or it can be reported on behalf of somebody else. So it's designed to facilitate effective communications to HR and do the appropriate follow-ups and manage a whole series of other information. So one of the goals is to protect other people within your organisation with the aim of minimising the spread. So if people have come into contact with other people, you can capture that and report on that and then contact those people, or the system can contact those people automatically. So that'll allow you to basically automatically contact staff and contractors who may become infected because they've been in contact with other people. Much of the information is in alignment with the World Health Organization where appropriate. Keep in mind, however, this is for company reporting and for you managing your staff, their whereabouts, their health status, and those sorts of information. So basically, what I'm talking about now is just availability and which versions of the product. So it's available almost immediately in the Viking platform for those who have Viking. And I'm going to talk about, I appreciate that there may be companies here or organizations here who are existing customers, and there may be organizations here that don't have myosh. So I'll cover the different grounds there. So pricing for existing customers will be done through our standard pricing calculators. What I want to say about pricing is we're pricing this module as low as we can possibly price it. This is not to make a profit. This is so we can provide a service and cover our costs to make sure that we can continue providing that service. So existing customers, whether it's version 4, whether it's classic or whether it's the Viking version, we have our standard pricing calculator, and the cost of the module will be a low priced module to add. So it'll be minimal. There may be some setup costs associated, again, to cover our costs of actually providing the service. For new customers, the costs will be slightly higher on the setup costs, just purely because we have to set up an entire schema for you in an environment. But again, we're keeping that as low as we possibly can. What will happen at the end of the webinar is, or shortly after, is Sarah will actually be sending out a web link for you to request a quote. Keep in mind that the cost of us providing the service to a small company is different to us to providing the service for a larger company. So someone with a few people, 10 people compared to 10,000 people, the price will be different. That's why I can't just say this is the price. However, once you've clicked on that link, you'll be able to submit the information about your company, and then we will contact you and provide you with the appropriate pricing. The availability, Viking is available pretty much immediately or in the next few days. The Viking version, version 3 and version 4 are being finalised. So we'll have further information, but we aim to get those out in the next week, if not sooner. We will have versions available for all versions of our product, version 4, retrofitted to version 3, Viking, so all people can subscribe to it. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Nigel, so Nigel can, and we'll take further questions towards the end and answer some of those questions, but Nigel will now go through and explain how the product works and what it does.
Thanks, Adrian. Okay, what we've got in front of us is my now familiar split screen, for those of you who've seen a few of these. Instead of having administration on one side and user views on the other, what I've now done is I've split this into a standard user and a person who belongs to a group that is managing these COVID cases. So as Adrian was saying, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to allow people to self-report, and they can do this provided they've got a license. But what we're also allowing people to do is we're allowing a person who is a COVID manager, if you want to call it that, to report on other people's behalf and fill in all of the information that you would fill in immediately, as well as investigative information. Both people can report for others. So just because you're a standard or lower level user doesn't mean to say you have to report for just yourself. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at this right-hand panel first, and we'll expand that to full screen. And we can see what it is that a basic user will do. Now notice the view over here, there are no documents. What we've decided is that because all you're going to do is report this and then submit it, there's really no need for you to see any of the information about who else has got it. So effectively, all you can do when you log in is log the fact that either you or somebody you're reporting on has the COVID-19. So if we have a look at some of these fields, we'll go through these individually. This is not something I usually do, going through every field, but I think it's important. We've got the date reported. This is a default date. As you log in, it fills this out. Select the select the affected person. The reporting person is obviously you. It'll fill that in automatically. And as we scroll down, we've got the affected person's birth date, followed by some exposure information. So here the exposure information is whether or not we've been exposed. I've clicked on yes. I've ticked a number of items. Here's the whether or not the person has traveled. If we've said yes, we can log new places that they've traveled to. But as I say, probably going to be no in the very near future. The details of the exposure, where this person was potentially exposed. If you need more information about that, there's a help option up here. I'll just put in some details and save myself the typing. You're probably used to my typing skills by now. Has the affected person been in isolation? If yes, some dates. Now, some of these are mandatory fields. Mandatory fields, for those of you who don't know Viking, with the little red asterisk. Again, which places has the person visited in the last 14 days, and once more some help for why you need to fill this out. If we scroll a little further down, we've got clinical information. So is the person showing symptoms? If you click yes, what kind of symptoms? Now, Adrian spoke about the fact that a lot of this actually comes from the WHO, and these are the values that they have provided. Those of you who are familiar with Viking, you know you can go in, you can change these if you need to. Not something I would be doing, but you can add new fields, remove fields, change keywords, etc. Date of onset of symptoms, we'll select that. Scroll a little further down. Has the affected person seen a doctor? If you say no, nothing happens. If you say yes, fill in some details. Have they been tested? Again, yes, what was the result? What's the affected person's status? Again, these are all standard values that the WHO have suggested or provided. Risk factors. Now, if this person is not recovered, what sort of risk factors are they? Maybe the person has diabetes. Have they been in contact with other people within the organization? Now, the person reporting this would know this. They would know where they've been, and what they can do is they can select the names of the people that they've been in contact with, possibly in the workplace, possibly outside. You can drop any files as normal, and then what you'd do is you'd submit the document. as we know, if you fail to complete any mandatory fields, what's going to happen is that you are going to be requested to fill in mandatory fields. You can't get away with this. So what's happened now is a notification has been sent to a person who belongs to the COVID group. For those of you not familiar with myosh, with Viking, all we're doing here is we're adding a group into your solution and we're putting people into that group. If you're not in the group, you can't see the documents. So now what we've done is we've sent this notification to the group, and Angela Admonson is within that group. So we'll expand this left-hand side and have a look. The latest document is document 40, the one we've just created. We'll click on it and have a look. All of the information that has been completed by the person who has created this is available to us. And as per usual, we would scroll through and review this information. We've got all of the symptoms. All of this information was provided to us. Based on this information, we can decide whether or not further evaluation is required. Now, it might be that somebody has reported the fact that they've got itchy hands because they've been washing them all the time. This is clearly not a symptom of COVID. So you might decide that the risk of being contagious is low, in which case you can type some information in here and close this case off. However, if the risk of contagion is high, what you then get, or medium in this case, both the same, what you then get is an evaluation section. So what sort of isolation is required? Do we need to be quarantined? Do we need to, just to go into self-isolation? Can the person continue to work? So it might be yes, they can continue to work because they work alone anyway, or they go into modified duties and then you can say maybe they're working online, something like that. Have you been in contact? Not contactable, not yet, phone, whatever. This was already filled out for us. The person logging this already said that they'd been in contact with Jason Bourne and Pablo Picasso. So what we can do is we can do a couple of things. Firstly, we've got the view here and we can have a look and see whether or not Pablo or Jason have actually lodged the fact that they are potentially a COVID case. Alternatively, what we can do down here is we can click on send notifications. And what this will do is we'll send a notification to both Pablo and Jason, and they can then self-report. Once they've self-reported, notifications will come back to the person, this person here, Angela, or the group, to say they are now self-reporting. And you would then be able to come into this report and select the links to these two people. If not, if you were going to do this yourself, because bear in mind, you might not be able to get hold of the people, what you can do is you can click Add New. And what Add New will do is will enable you to lodge another report. And of course, once you fill this out, what it's going to do is it's going to create a link in the contact tracing, and you'll have potentially, well, at least two, but maybe more. So you have the option to send this to people with a send notification, or if they're already in the system, you can select them and add them to the list, or you can add their report yourself and report on behalf of them. So maybe you get hold of them, you speak to them on the phone, and you can do this all yourself. The importance of this is so that, and filling out of these fields is so that at the end of it, what you've got is, I'll just save this in a moment, is something that you can report on and extract information from. Now, for those of you who are very familiar with Viking, just bear with me for 2 minutes when I talk about the views. Obviously, we've put in a fair amount of test information in here. It's unlikely that in the average company, you're going to find 40 people that have the disease. However, what you're able to do, if it turns out that you've got more than you expected, is you're able to move columns around. You can search or filter by dates. You can filter by sites. And you can save the views once you've done it. So what you're able to do is organize these views in a way that best suits what you're looking for, then click on Save View and save the view for future use. And then over here, what you've got in your user views will be a drop-down list of all of the views that you've saved, which you can look at on an ongoing basis. You can as well, if you want to import information. You might have this information already on an Excel spreadsheet. You can import it, or if you want to, you can export it. Now, the other things that you want to report on, and most organizations that have Viking, in fact, probably all, are going to have the dashboard. What we've done is we've created here a COVID tab, and inside this COVID tab, what we've done is we've added a few reports that are now they will be part of the default set of reports that you can just use. So these are pre-formatted additional reports in the dashboard. I won't go through every single one. They're fairly straightforward. A sort of a graph showing trends, test results, risk levels, and of course, again, for those of you not familiar, if you click on an area of a graph, what it will do is it will open up the documents that actually represent that area of the graph, and then you can click on the document and it will open up the document itself eventually. There we go. So you can build this tab, and if we go down to configure, I'm pretty sure that these graphs will get added fairly shortly to your dashboard. But if you go down to add a widget, what you'll find is a bunch of COVID-19 graphs that you can add. And of course, for those of you who have created your own, if these are not sufficient, you can go in click in Manage Widgets and create your own in the wizard. This is not particularly difficult. I'll just spend a little time, a couple of seconds in here. Select your widget type. It's this module is what you'd be selecting, the COVID-19 reporting module, and you choose the form COVID-19 report. And there aren't that many fields to choose from. And they're pretty straightforward to select. So building your own graph out of this won't be that difficult. If you need help, you can go to the myosh Academy site, and there are videos that explain how to build graphs. Now, an alternative to this is Viking Analytics. Well, not an alternative, an addition is Viking Analytics. This is a third-party product. So Adrian was talking about pricing. We are trying to keep this price as low as possible, but this third-party product, we have to pay for the use of this. And this is unfortunately not something that we can cut the cost on because it's a cost to us. But what it does give you is some very interesting abilities in terms of reporting. Now, in that report that I was creating, what I was saying, if you remember, I was saying, who have I been in contact with? And those people have then filled out reports. And what this does is translates into this network. So what I can see here is Jason Bourne, I think it's Jason, yep, it's Jason, who's been in contact with Ryan Giggs. And you can see at the top that the red nodes indicate persons positive, orange pending, and green indicate negative. So what you can do is quickly see where people are and how they've been affected. Now, if I wanted to see Ryan, what I can do is just type in Ryan, and what it does is it enlarges that person that I've searched for and shows me all of the people that that person has been in contact with. So again, what you can see is by clicking on an area of the graph, it highlights other areas of the page that are related to what I just clicked on. Now, we'll go through a couple of these. They're fairly standard. They do all the same things. We will add more graphs as required, but we're going to have to work with you guys as well to find out what it is that's important from you. We've got something similar to this one that we just had a look at. Oh, and by the way, what you can also do in this graph is you can say, well, you know, show me just what's going on at Mount Bryant. And what it will do is show you just that filtered area of the graph. Something similar to this is this one here, where again, we can drill down to different areas. But what you're able to do here is if we want to have a look and see potentially what who Winston Churchill has been in contact with, we can click on the link here and it shows us all of the, almost like ribbons, all of the people that have been linked to Winston Churchill. This is the one I wanted. Here's another one that's sort of similar to that network. So effectively what we're able to do with this third-party product is provide really nice visuals of what's going on, fairly easy to understand, but as I mentioned, it is a third-party product and there's not a lot we can do about the pricing for that. Okay, Sarah.
Yes. Okay. All right. Is there anything, Adrian, do you want to say before I start to read some questions?
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. No, I've actually been answering some of the questions in the as we've been going, so we can potentially expand on those if need be.
Okay, so I don't know which ones you have answered.
Okay, so I'll go through each of the different ones. So there's one that was asked where we've already got 180 reports. Can this be bulk uploaded? With Viking, you can upload, if you've got existing data in Excel or in other places, but specifically Excel, we can actually do that import for you in version 3 and version 4. In Viking, you can upload it yourself, so you can import.
Through this import option over here.
That's correct. Yeah. So you can do those imports yourself. Another question is, will version 3.4 include all the questions? Basically, yes, as far as possible. There will be some slight differences between the previous versions and Viking, just purely the way they work, but the functionality and the fields should largely be the same. Another question was, is all this data available through your API? In the Viking platform, yes. In version 3.4, I don't know. I'd have to get one of our technical people to answer that component. But the answer is yes from the Viking version. Another question was about recording visitors and contractors. Basically, if the visitors and contractors are in your contacts list, or if you get them added to your contacts list, you can then report against those people in the system, because they'll be then available in the name pickers. In Viking, it's easy enough to, let's say you've got a visitors list or a contractors list, will be easy enough to just import those on a daily basis or as required. Okay, the API for those who not sure what an API is, which was another question, it's a way of integrating with other systems. So it's getting systems to talk to each other. So you can either get information out of myosh, or you can push information into myosh from other systems. It usually requires a programmer to use the APIs that we provide to be able to do that. Again, that is definitely available in version, in the Viking version. I think it is available in version 3.4, but I'd have to come back on that one. Okay, so they're the questions that I've seen in the system. Okay, some people have been, there's one more. Some people have been using version 3 and potentially using incident reporting out of that, version 3 or 4. So they've maybe been logged these as incident reports. If you wanted to convert to the COVID-19 or use the COVID-19 module, we'd have to export that data out of your existing incident reporting module and then import it into the new one. A question was, what if you don't have the Viking version? So I'm assuming you've got version 3 or 4. You still can get the module. There will be a version 3.4 module available for you. How quickly can it be rolled out to existing customers? Version 3.4 isn't available quite yet, but it'll be available hopefully within the week. It'll really depend upon the number of organizations asking for it, and how many implementations we need to do. So it'll really just be based on our existing resources available. So we hope fairly quickly. So you know, we're hoping within a day or two of the module becoming available is what we hope for, but I don't want to overpromise and under-deliver if we get swamped. Another question that's been asked is, can this be used on the Viking app? And yes, it can be for the Viking version. So we will endeavour to try to allow logging for version 3 and 4 as well, if that's feasible, but definitely on the Viking app. So it'll be enabled. So you probably wouldn't do the analysis on the Viking app. You could do the evaluation if you wanted to, but certainly for people to report, the Viking app will have the mobile enabled component turned on. I think there's more questions coming in. I'll need to, with the version 3.4 app, we'll need to come back to you. So we'll need to, based on previous, what we've done with other previous modules, we would be likely to make it available for logging. There may be some more limitations on the version 3.4 app because it's not quite as sophisticated as the Viking app. It doesn't have the capability to do as much as hiding and displaying information as the Viking version does. So we will be looking at it. It may not be quite as functional as the Viking version, but again, we'll need to get back to you with regards to the availability on the version 3.4 app. Okay, the questions are, I think, have stopped for the moment. Nigel, are you still there? Yep. I was just wondering whether it might be worthwhile. I know that you didn't do it, at least I don't think you did during the presentation. You showed a new one, but you might want to show some existing ones that are open with some data in it, so you can just sort of see what they actually look like, specifically where there's links and so forth.
Okay, let me have a look and see. do this one, Adrian, where you're the infected person.
Okay, we don't have it. Okay, I was just hoping we'd had one with contract tracing in there. So maybe
Well,
Winston,
let's just add.
maybe Winston Churchill's got one that's already
what I
got
might
some information in it.
what I might do is just go and select a couple, right? So people have seen this before anyway. Those who have Viking, we'll just tick a couple, add them, and submit. So this is what I was talking about when you click on linked records. What it will do is it will build up a table of all of the people that this person has been in contact with and what their symptoms are. And if you then need to have a look at that, all you need to do is click on the link and it will open up that record as well.
One of the things that I guess for the Viking, specifically for the Viking customers, is that it's highly configurable, particularly if you've got if you've done the advanced configuration. If you haven't, the cost of actually of configuring is very low on Viking, because changes can be made very quickly. I can see there's yeah. So basically, if there's questions in there that you don't like, and this is specifically for the Viking customers or want changed, it's very easy to do so. It's not impossible to do so for version 3.4, but there would be more work involved in doing it. Nigel.
Yes.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh, that's all right. I was just running through this slowly to remind people of what's actually here. Any more questions coming in?
I don't think so. Not for a little while. So I have actually put the link for the quote submission form on the chat. Quite a few people have already noticed that. So is there anything else, Adrian?
No, that's it from me.
Okay, so we'll send an email very soon with that link for the quote form, and then tomorrow we will send a copy of this video. And if you have any questions, you can always reply to Tegan Bates' email or email support if you want something more technical. Okay. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Nigel. And I hope everyone has a great day. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll end this now. Bye.
Right.